Robin, it's lovely to meet you. We're flashing back actually to Glastonbury, the movie. The one thing that struck me with the film is this tremendous sense of community amongst all the festival goers. Is that what you were trying to capture?
Totally, absolutely. I mean, the Glastonbury Festival is the one. It's the one that still retains that spirit. You know, although most of the footage from, well, all of it was shot in '93. We wanted to reflect that kind of spiritual connectivity that everybody has when they're there. And I've just found, you know, going recently, that it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff that's going on. People are still connecting with each other in exactly the same way. And it's a leveler. You know, there's a lot of there is very, very few festivals on the planet that are like Glastonbury. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that there's a ley line running through the site, and that the Glastonbury tour is visible in the distance, and you know, and people have been partying on that spot for millennia. Maybe it's something to do with that, but maybe it's just a happy coincidence that the right people with the right kind of state of mind have decided to hold this thing and to keep it going and hold it together for all that time. And it's very special. You know, people go there not maybe expecting a rock festival with a band in a field, and by the day 5 they're completely leveled. They you know, people kind of just completely bond with each other. There's a kind of spirit of freedom, a kind of pure and positive anarchy that sort of pervades the whole place. And you leave Glastonbury and get back into the real world, and it just seems so surreal. Well, what we might call the real world, you know, everyday life, and it just seems surreal and odd and different and just like wrong in a funny way. So Glastonbury's always been it's kind of a little glimpse, a kind of utopian glimpse of what could be, how society could operate, you know, and maybe it is still ahead of its time, and the world will
come together and
peace and love will, you know,
prevail.
Yeah, you know, God bless. I hope, you know.
The interesting thing as well that there's lots of sort of facts that are sort of threaded through the documentary. One of them being as well the history of Glastonbury being a pagan festival, isn't it?
Yeah, people have been doing that kind of stuff in the West Country. The West Country is it's a unique. It's almost like a country of its own. You come from there, don't you? So I mean, it is like, you know, you've got England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and you've got the West Country. Got their own language. You know, it's culturally very, very different. And that kind of summer fair is so much part of the tradition of that area. And naturally, when Glastonbury first started, you know, people from local would have been drawn to it to carry out the same kind of traditional activities that they've been doing for thousands of years. So, yeah, and it still goes on. And interestingly, it's sort of, you know, it's crossed over because it's been so much a part of Glastonbury Festival or whatever. Stonehenge, you know, obviously we all know about Stonehenge Festival, which is only just down the road. Because it's so much part of this culture that it's managed to sort of mutate and change and become part of the, you know, whatever's going on now, you know, whatever the contemporary sort of alternative way of living that exists now. So, you know, it's still, you know, it's a constant sort of cycle. It's a constant loop. You know, it's constantly changing, so, and it's good.
Freedom of behaviour, let you do what you want, let you get on with your life, stop hassling you, let you get into some good music.
Going back to the first film, when you shot that, I'm correct in saying that you were the first film to get lottery
We were
funding?
the very first lottery film. I remember going, it was an absolute shock. I mean, thankfully we got it. I don't think we would have been able to get the prints made and get it out in the cinemas if we hadn't. And I think they kind of knew that. But someone got it. Someone in the Arts Council knew what we were trying to do, and said they'd fund our release, you know. And I remember going, they hadn't even set up their accounting procedures yet. We had to go to the Arts Council and sit there in their foyer while they went up and sort of like tapped into a computer and got a check for us, because the film was coming out in 2 weeks' time, and we had to pay for the prints, you know, otherwise, you know.
null and void. It'd be still sat in the cutting room.
I know, exactly.
And you shot the film originally anamorphically.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and the reasons behind that?
Sure. We chose CinemaScope, the format preferred by all the world's great filmmakers. Obviously, we want to sit ourselves up there with them, and the main reason is because CinemaScope it's an epic format. It's you go to the cinema when the film's in CinemaScope, the curtains open. Right, now we've got the full screen. It occupies the entire space, and it's an observational film. It's a journey. It's experiential. We wanted to drag people draw them right into the of being there, the whole essence of actually being part of the festival, and photographically, it's so beautiful and rich and crisp, and the definition is so sharp. In fact, that's the lenses that we used these special primes. They were the lenses that Kubrick used on 2001 and Barry Lyndon. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of magic in the actual equipment that we chose to shoot it on. It was unbelievably expensive to do that. But if we hadn't, then it would have been a different film. It wouldn't have been, I mean, the thing about it is being able to see what's on the expressions on the face of the guy in the mid-distance. What he's doing with his hands, what's written on someone's T-shirt. What you see scribbled on the board of one of the odd stages. The next act that's coming on. All that stuff's sort of part of the.
It's all the attention to detail, isn't it?
It's kind of
really. And because it's 35mm that you're shooting on, you haven't got this budget. It's like Steven Spielberg would have. Right. So how do you plan to shoot a documentary? If it's covering a number of days, have you got to be really organised with what you shoot?
Well, the truth is that we got ourselves massively in hock. We just ordered as much stock as we could from AGFA. Beautiful stock. And AGFA at that time, that film stock was the stuff that all the films in Africa were being made on. Something about them, we wouldn't have gone with Fuji or Kodak. They've all got a different look, it's like choosing a paint or something like that, if you're doing a painting. And AGFA had the look that we thought would work with Glastonbury, and were prepared to offload boxes and boxes and boxes of 30 grand's worth of film stock with us, And their credit controller was sort of on our case for about 4, 5, 6, 7 months. But we finally managed to pay for the material. But having a film is it's called a film. You've got to shoot film. We couldn't skimp on the stock. You just had to shoot.
On high 8.
You're in a situation where you think something's good. At the time, you've got to make the decision to go for it. You can't just say, we're a bit short of the. You've got to churn the stuff out.
Great. What I noticed as well is that we're capturing a certain time period as well. The 90s, there's this great music that's really fresh that's coming out, and the one thing that stands out to me as well, that we don't have this digital technology where there's people with their phones recording everything.
Right.
It is capturing actually a historical moment in time, isn't it? Really, that nobody else at that point is privileged to get in and do.
There's no YouTube handheld clips from the audience. I know, it's weird. There was not one mobile. Well, I think we had some mobile phones, but they didn't work. There's nothing. I mean, people would use walkie-talkies, but I know it's odd. It was not that long ago, but there wasn't even. Google wasn't even. No one had an email address. I mean, it's only 17 years ago. I know.
Hardly any time.
The culture has just gone through this enormous seismic shift since then.
Come on, people, get with the sound!
With regards to Flashback, what made you want to now revisit and retell this story?
I was always happy with the original film, but it was never finished. I don't think any filmmaker has ever finished a film. They wouldn't. No one's ever completely happy with what they've done, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting for digital technology to catch up, basically to be able to go back to this amazing format that we'd filmed it on, and rediscovered stuff that we hadn't found in the first place. I got a load more experience on the guy that I was when I first made it, and it never existed on anything other than the original prints. And I knew that when, once we got those scanned into the proper digital cinema domain at the highest definition we possibly could, it was time to go again. And I reckon there's a whole new audience out there waiting for, who would appreciate it, So, got into it, started working on it, and then realised that there was all this stuff that didn't make it into the first film. I mean, it was like I got this analogy in my head the other day about my kid with his Lego box. And he pours his Lego out on the floor and remakes the film, remakes his spaceship again, and that's kind of what we've done. It's there was an awful lot of stuff that didn't make it in that we didn't realise. It's like
it's gold, really.
Yeah. It was like a gold mine that had been shut, and then all of a sudden we realised there's loads of gold still in there.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Like why? Brilliant. Everything. Brilliant.
The edit. It is so beautifully crafted, and it really feels like that the music is complementing the story. It isn't just
I'm glad you got that.
Because the choice of music was.
I've actually done a transcript of all of the whole film because, as you're making a film, you get into the minutiae of every word, every aside, something that someone says in the background. A word, a lyric in one of the songs in the film. And we had an awful lot of stuff to choose from. For instance, the Verve track. To me, you're like a setting sun. It's like Glastonbury. All this kind of stuff was relevant to the ideas that we're trying to get across in the film. And so I have transcribed the whole thing, and I want to do a subtitle version. And I will put the transcription up because. All the lyrics all relate to the experience that we're trying to convey in the film.
Because it really helps the passage of time and tell this story.
It's
this
subtle,
whole experience. It is actually, yeah.
But it's one day hopefully someone will go through it and say, oh no, these guys actually were doing something here,
There's nothing like this. There's nothing like
What was great as well was obviously Glastonbury Festival. It's a music festival, but it also tells such a different story about what's going on in the background as well, with all the different other activities. I think it was important, wasn't it, to capture that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, it's never just about the music. I've been to Glastonbury several times, and I think I've only ever watched the main stage once, or walked past it, and there's so and so's on, and there's Oasis doing their thing. It's just about all the other stages, and it's weirdly so many people tell me that they go to Glastonbury, they spend their fortune on the ticket because they want to go and see XYZ band, and then they don't watch them because they're busy watching a guy with a didgeridoo up in the stone circle, or it's sort of all that sort of the big money stuff about the big money acts. Once you're there, they become irrelevant. It's just about getting consumed by the experience,
One of the artists on the film had said about how music brings people together.
He's a very special guy. That was Ayeto Moreira, and he allowed us to. This is a kind of workshop that he gives. He's the world's greatest percussionist. Basically, he started Weather Report. I mean, he's played with everyone, Miles Davis, the lot. But his dad was a magic man, a magician from Brazil. And he was illiterate, his father, but he did automatic writing, and he wrote prescriptions for people. And so Ayeto comes from this culture of mysticism, and it's reflected in his music. And he is just, although he's from Brazil, he's so Glastonbury. I mean, he got it completely. He absolutely, he knows exactly what it's about. And this is the kind of thing that we're trying to get across. That there is another worldliness. There's something out there that we don't get. We don't understand yet, but when you're there, I don't know what it is, but when you're at Glastonbury, you just get it.